So we're just going to start off by stating your name and your relation to the facility.
Well, my name is Jonathan Hogan. I'm actually the landscape services manager. So basically, it is my job to manage our division, which in-house manages all the city cemeteries. So basically, I work one-on-one with Dave in managing all of our cemeteries.
So you're mainly here a lot, or do you go to all of them quite frequently?
My office is on the other side of town, so I'm pretty much in and out of all the cemeteries pretty much daily. It just depends on the schedule. But yeah, I actually managed the other two crews that manage the other three cemeteries, and I work more one-on-one with them than Dave is, because they're a different crew and they manage different properties. Cemeteries are a small part of what we do. We actually manage the entire city landscape.
Really?
Yeah, passive parks, downtown, interchanges, interstate ramps, all the flowers and shrubs and things you see in the downtown area. We maintain all those, we plant all those, prune them, mulch, all that good stuff. And then we maintain the police department, the courthouse, the libraries. So yeah, we're pretty much everywhere.
So how long have you been associated with? How long have you been associated with this cemetery or the cemeteries in general?
I've been here for 10 years.
10 years. Wow. You about to say something? Oh. So tell me a little bit about some of the changes you've seen here over the past 10 years.
I guess for us, changes, for me, I guess changes would be, employees who have retired, who were here when I came, whose number one sole purpose in working in the landscape services was to be in Oakwood or Fairview or one of the cemeteries. I mean, that's what they like to do. That's where they wanted to stay, and that's where we kept them. Ray Spencer was one of those guys that we talked about earlier, who was the cemetery crew leader when I first came here. I guess those are the big changes, people that have retired, and us working with a smaller manpower base in the cemeteries, because realistically the job hasn't gotten easier. We've acquired more work, which makes it harder to maintain how we would like to maintain it, but we've managed to do that with fewer people and more work. And I guess a lot more of the paperwork issues that Dave talked about earlier. There's a lot more legal issues and things that we're dealing with now as time's grown and property's been passed on down the line from generation to generation, and a lot of people don't plan the way generations did beforehand. They don't plan for these kind of things, and then when it happens, it's total chaos. And generally, we get stuck with a lot of that because we manage that property. We basically own that property that they're looking to be interred on. So I think those are the big changes.
So since you said you work with like the police department, the library, other public places, why would you say, or would you say that this cemetery or all the other cemeteries is important to Hickory?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You look at the history. They all have their history. And the biggie is the fact that, most of the people buried in cemeteries were citizens or are citizens of Hickory, and they've given somehow, some way, some point in time, they gave their time, to the city, whether it was people who created large businesses here. We talked about with Dave in the past, the Shufords that are here, the folks from LR College, LP France Stadium. They've all given some way to the city, and I think that it's important for us to remember that historically, and on our end to remind people of that and manage it in that way.
So since you work with the landscape of this facility, what would you say have kept this facility sacred over time?
Well, I mean, our management practices really haven't changed a lot. We stress very heavily when we bring workers or new people into this field that this is a sacred space. People buried here are important, whether they're no longer with us or not. They are still important. Their families are important, and it is our 100% duty to maintain the cemetery in that manner. mowing, weed eating, it's hard, I guess, to wrap all that up, but, I mean, the big thing is we have to look at everybody's property the same. Every grave's the same, every person, I mean, somebody's gonna come visit that person belongs to somebody. And when they come to the cemetery, we want them to feel like we care and that we put in the time and the effort to make their family important. I think that would be the big thing.
What is the most significant thing that you've experienced while working here?
Well, I guess never take anything for granted would be a huge thing. You get to know a lot of people and a lot of situations, and we've talked about a lot of those working in the cemeteries. I don't get as much of a chance to work one-on-one with customers as Dave does, but when Dave's on vacation or out, I step in and take his place at that point in time, although we work via phone, computer, whatever we have to do at that time to figure out a situation. But I mean, you just meet a lot of people. You meet people who just lost a child, a young child, a middle-aged child, a parent, a grandparent, and you just learn a lot about, not taking life for granted, because you just don't know what's going to happen, and we're not granted tomorrow. We're not promised tomorrow all the time, And I think for me, that's the big thing. Having coworkers who have passed on that work here with us, who are buried in the cemetery, that's another reminder. I mean, we lost, a good friend and a great coworker, and, it wasn't anything that was expected. It just happened, so it tells you a lot, I guess, through the situations you learn.
And lastly, tell us, what do you see with this facility or all of the cemeteries in the near future? What do you see in the future?
Well, at this point in time, I see us, we're still obviously in a lot of cemeteries we'll be interring bodies for the next 50 years or longer. But I do see us, now that we're not really selling, stepping away from the sales, and then putting more effort into updating and sprucing up landscapes in the cemeteries. Once again, for those people who have family here, so that they come in and see that we aren't just letting it go.
Right.
Just because it's full, or we're not selling, we're not just going to turn our backs on it and let it go. I still think there's a lot of ways that we can update, spruce up, add to the cemeteries to make them more inviting for folks. Just like our columbarium, we're in the process of working to add some benches and some more benches throughout the cemetery, because we do know people like to walk in the cemetery, and a lot of the reason that they don't hang around is they have nowhere to sit. So that's just one project that we're going to take on, of adding some benches throughout where people can actually come in and take a load off and sit down and talk about whatever's on their mind. And of course, there's always the beautification aspect of cemeteries. 90% of your cemeteries, when you walk in, you see them, they're beautiful. There's flowers year-round blooming. I mean, that's what you want to think about when you walk in, and we're no different here. All of our cemeteries are in the process of having updates and things added just to make them more aesthetically pleasing to loved ones, and even just visitors who are here to search history. So we want to make them more appealing. I think that'll be a big thing for the future, is the appeal and the aesthetics of the cemeteries.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That wasn't that bad, was it?
Of course not.
No, it hurt.